In this segment, we'll ask what is necessary for the existence of a libertarian free will. In other words, we want to know what must be true of any universe in which a libertarian free will could exist. Remember, libertarian free will is the type of free will where we can entertain alternative options that really have some non-zero probability of happening, and that we can then bias to become more likely to happen in light of what we want to cause to happen. By definition, a libertarian free will requires first and foremost the reality of indeterminism. This doesn't mean that events are utterly random. What indeterminism means is that events happen with certain objective probabilities that are less than 1. In other words, things can really turn out in more than one possible way, and whatever happens, they could have turned out otherwise. A second necessary, but not alone sufficient condition for the possibility of libertarian free will is that there can be bottom-up or microscopic to macroscopic causation of a type that makes macroscopic events indeterministic. Regarding bottom-up causation, it is necessary for a libertarian free will that macroscopic events, such as neurons firing, can be influenced by amplified chance events in the microscopic domain. If indeterminism primarily originates in the quantum domain, and quantum domain indeterminacy could not somehow get amplified up to a level where it made a macroscopic difference to, say, the timing of neural firings, well, the macroscopic universe would be deterministic even if the microscopic domain was indeterministic. In brief, it is necessary for a libertarian free will that there be microscopic to macroscopic amplification of chance from the quantum domain to the domain of neural firings. There's evidence for that I'll get into later in the course in the neuroscience modules. A third condition for the realization of a libertarian free will is the existence of top-down or macroscopic to microscopic causation. Given that our minds are realized in our kinds of brains, it is necessary that a macroscopic brain state, realizing, for example, an intention to learn this foreign language rather than those others, can bias microscopic events, such as which possible paths open to atoms or quarks, or whatever lies at the rootmost level, will become realized. Again, there's evidence for top-down causation that I will return to later in the course, but for now, we're just listing what's necessary for libertarian free will to be possible. A fourth necessary condition for the realization of a libertarian free will is that the present state of that physical realization of a mind, in our case, the present state of our brain, must be able to entertain and then bias the real probabilities of event outcomes in light of reasons for making this choice versus those other possible ones. I say real probabilities here to emphasize that what we need is an ontologically real indeterminism where there are multiple possibilities of event outcome, each of which has a non-zero probability of actually happening. We're not talking about subjective epistemological probabilities, which are really just our best guesses regarding what might happen. In future lectures, we'll summarize evidence for the reality of these four necessary conditions for having a libertarian free will. We'll summarize evidence for the reality of indeterminism, amplification of quantum domain events to the level of neural spike timing, evidence of top-down mental causation, and evidence of how we entertain possibilities and then enact one option over others. In this course, I'll argue that our brains have evolved to realize both type 1 and type 2 incompatibilist definitions of free will. Type 1 free will is the ability to entertain options, deliberate among them, and then select one in light of our reasons. Type 2 free will is the capacity that we have to now choose to become a different kind of chooser in the future, say one that can play a musical instrument that we now cannot play, or one that can speak a foreign language that we now cannot yet speak, or even one that has a different character than the character that we now have. In a sense, you might say that we have won the existential lottery because our brains appear to satisfy the necessary conditions required to have a libertarian free will. Certainly, evolution did not have to come up with a physical causal system that harnesses chance to fulfill its ends. And we in no way played a role in the evolution of the human brain that we inherited. But as some sage once said, sometimes you're lucky and you just have to learn to accept it.